Hello, hello. This is Postgres FM. As usual, I'm Nick, Postgres AI, and as usual, my co-host is Michael, PG Master. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Nikolay.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Great. Very good, very good. Thank you for asking. So today we have very big topic. I'm joking. But yeah, I hope this podcast episode should be the shortest because we are going to discuss very narrow topic. Although this topic hits almost every project, as I noticed. So every system has usually some table like users. It has some column like email, and in email we usually expect the search to not to distinguish registry of characters. Like it should be case-insensitive search, right? So if it's all uppercase email or lowercase or mixed, all those values must be considered the same. However, all people made this mistake, including myself, many times. You usually you start using varchar something or text for email column, and then you see that multiple accounts, multiple users' records have basically the same record, just written in different cases, right? So here we usually, what do? We just introduce additional unique index over expression, lower email. So we convert email value to lowercase or uppercase, doesn't matter, and build an index, bit index with unique option, create unique index concurrently on lower or upper function from that value, and this gives us uniqueness, caSe-inSENsiTive uniqueness, right? But that's not it. We then need to fix our search queries, right?
And make sure that every future use of email uses the function as well in order to be able to use the index, or have two indexes if you want to be able to, there's a few kind of like gotchas around this approach.
Honestly, in like roughly half of the cases, we do a lot of health check of startups. Like usually, like they are grown to some like terabyte or so, and we see some tables. And not every time we look into the table structure, but oftentimes we do. And I just see some indexes, like index on raw email value and on lower email. I see it a lot, and some queries use one index. So we hunt for unused indexes, which part of our health check, and we discussed it on our podcast in terms of how to maintain good health of indexes. Extra indexes is not what you want to have, and in this case, if we have index on raw value and on lower of email, often we also see both of them are used, which means there is a mess, right? So all of this was introduction of our today's topic, which is called CITEXT, right?
Yeah. So this was I know it's a very narrow topic. This was my choice because I was looking through the contrib modules at what was in there that was both popular and that we hadn't discussed yet. And we've got to enough episodes now that that was not a long list of ones that, I mean, so there were definitely some other extensions, we have some other contrib modules that we haven't discussed yet, but the ones on that list are not ones I hear discussed often, not ones I see in use much. Whereas CITEXT, I feel like at least was quite popular. It did get quite a lot of use, or at least a lot of people were interested in the use case. So yeah, I was interested kind of in your perspective on this, and I also, after suggesting it as a topic, started looking into it more and found the topic more interesting than I was expecting to. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on this, and what people should be doing. But just in terms of those drawbacks of using the function approach, there's a couple more mentioned by the documentation that I thought were good. One is less important, but there is just the verbosity of every query and just having to have functions in them. But a more important one, potentially, depending on other opinions you might have, is that you also then can't use it as a primary key if it's just text, because, or at least you'd have to have another unique index on it to guarantee uniqueness to make sure somebody couldn't sign up with the same email address but with some case different because it's the same email address. But yeah, email is an important one. I don't know if you'd actually want email as a primary key anywhere, but also username. Like a lot of services allow you to set a username that is case insensitive, like social media handles and things. Those will often be, if not case insensitive, definitely unique depending on case in a lot of cases. So
Yeah,
like Twitter handles, for example.
yeah. And the question is why it's in extension, not in core, right? For
Well,
example.
there's a couple of questions, right? Like, could this be a data type? Yeah. Could it
Yeah.
be a core data
Well,
type?
it is data type, but
Yeah.
it's living outside of the core.
But I actually think so. Well, I don't know how quickly you want to jump ahead, but the reason I found this super interesting is in the docs for CITEXT, the contrib module, it actually suggests not using either CITEXT or the lower function approach, but instead creating a case insensitive collation and
Yeah,
using that for it. So, and that was so elegant. I mean, but it's something you have to do at the user level. And
explicitly.
we could ship, like, I don't see why Postgres couldn't come with one of those pre-built that you
Mm.
could just use. And maybe it wouldn't be a case insensitive field. I could imagine a case. Sorry, so I need to stop using the word case to mean like argument. I could imagine an argument for having email as a data type that could be in
Oh,
Postgres.
that's interesting. I remember for Postgres some huge snippet to check that it's really email. It's like there's RFC, right? And it's not trivial to ensure some value is valid email address or not. It's not really like so trivial as one might think, right?
Well, so I've seen two cases for this. One is the really complicated one, which actually I think suits the argument that it should be pre-built because you don't want everybody rolling their own version of that. And the other version is no, just strip it right back. All you need to do is does it contain an at? Maybe is it all lowercase or can like cast it to lowercase, and then that's it. Maybe a period after the at or a full stop after the at. But I think anything more complicated than that runs into potentially not
Yeah.
allowing things that should be allowed, right?
So I will tell you what I think. First of all, I agree that collation is an elegant solution, and actually collation, it's the job of collations, even in SQL standard, is to define rules how we compare values, right? And case sensitive or case insensitive, this is comparison, right? So it's
Yeah.
exactly where it should be. The only thing, as I remember, there should be some like you need to distinguish comparison at byte level or like logical level. It's like deterministic or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, I never used it myself. Never. I just read about this and I have no idea. My own experience is I was like when I first discovered CITEXT, probably it happened 19 years ago or so. Like on my second year of Postgres use or maybe in the first year even.
I have the history of it here, by the way.
Yeah, it's a very old contrib module.
First released to the public 17th of February 2003, but it wasn't contrib module at that point.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
only happened a few years later. And it was a kind of like a redesign at that point. But yeah,
Yeah.
so you were pretty early.
Well, yeah, I started using Postgres in 2005 or 6, and
Mhm.
of course it was social media, so we definitely had the table users. At that time, I tried to avoid plural, so it was maybe something else like person or something. Yeah, then I was convinced by the influence of Ruby on Rails and Django and others, like, okay, it should be plural. And then I quickly became a fan of CITEXT. And then I quickly became not a fan because like
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2 years later, I stopped being a fan because like it's extra effort to install extension and then you need to describe everyone what like, whoa, this is special data type. And I found it easier to keep using text or varchar. And these days, I think just text. Well, it's another topic, text or varchar, and with limit or no for length.
But did you use collations or no?
No.
Interesting.
It's
Just
just
functions.
unique. Yeah, function index with unique option if we need uniqueness. That's it. And then we need to adjust all the queries. And I was in my own projects. I was hunting to if we made decision that it should be caSe-inSENSITive search, then probably it should be global. So we should get rid of index on raw value. So that's it,
Yeah.
and fix it in all queries and avoid sequential scans, and that's it. So this is like you either want caSe-sensitive search, so index should be on raw value, or you want caSe-inSENSITive search. In this case, you must have index on lower or upper. You need to choose in advance and make it a rule, like part of your code style, probably. And then use it usually on both sides of comparison. So input value also get lowercase or uppercase, and the value in column. And we know that we rely on index on expression here, right? That's
Yeah.
it.
Well, this is an interesting thing that the original author, so it was originally, the CITEXT module was originally authored by Donald Fraser. And in the initial email about this, one of the use cases was multi-column functional indexes. So if you want an index on a single, like just on email, fine, you can do a function on that. But at least at the time, you couldn't have it on two. Let's say you wanted it on email, comma, username, which may have been more common back then before they had like the includes option. If you wanted it to be on the lower of both of those, you'd have to have like a kind of a parent function that did both of those. So it got a bit messy in terms of multi-column indexes. Whereas if you have them as their own data type, you can just do that at will.
Multi-column expression on two expressions, right? So lower email, lower something else. I think
Yeah,
right now it's
exactly.
definitely possible.
Okay, great. I didn't realize that. But
So I
back
think,
then it wasn't. So that was like one
yeah,
of the
that's interesting. I
original.
don't remember this nuance. Yeah, okay, but yeah, so it's difficult to use the term multi-column here because it's already not column but expression.
Yeah.
Multi-layered or something. I don't know. So
Multi-dimension,
multi-dimensional
maybe.
index on
Yeah.
expressions. It should work these days. Not a problem. But also there is a inconvenience if you go this route and use like lower email or something. It's easier to forget that we need to when index is created, we need to run analyze on the table because it lacks statistics on expression.
Yes. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
point.
If you build the regular index on raw column value, statistics usually already there, right?
Yeah.
But for expressional indexes, it's not there. But I haven't since then I made this decision in favor of expression indexes, and I never went back. So why should I use CITEXT in 2025?
I don't think you should, but I also don't think you should be having to do lower functions.
Both
I
paths
think,
are bad. Collation path is
yeah,
good. Okay, that's
yes,
interesting.
that's what I think is the solution now. So it's like super interesting. I actually came across just by chance while looking into this, a blog post by Adam Johnson, who's worked on Django for many years. It seems like Django actually removed support or mostly removed support for CITEXT in version 5.1 of Django. So they actually deprecated this, and he blogged about what you should do instead and wrote up about the how to set up Collation and what we kind of define all the kind of ICU. I don't even know what you call them, like codes, or it's called a locale, isn't it? But it's like made up of a bunch of different complete gibberish, in my opinion. But you can look up the spec and kind of choose which language do you want it to be in. Do you want it to be case sensitive or not? Like, do you want it to be sensitive to accents or not? So
Yeah, that's cool. And it's
yeah,
much more flexibility.
yes,
And it's also SQL standard approach, I think.
yes, it is.
Last time I looked into SQL standard, it was more than 10 years ago, so my memory might make tricks with me, but I remember something about collations, so it should
This came up well in 2003 when it was first proposed. I think I read that a post from Tom Lane in that thread that said, basically the SQL standard way of doing this is via collations, but I
Yeah.
can't see us doing that anytime soon. So this
Ah.
makes sense as a hack in the meantime.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. So it's very hard. How are we going to name this episode? I thought it will be CITEXT. Now it's shifted.
I was going to suggest maybe case insensitive text fields
Don't
or
cut this
something.
because it
Whoa.
shows confusion. Like it's like
Yeah.
a case
Well,
insensitive comparison. Yeah.
because that's what we want, isn't it?
But it goes beyond just cases. You mentioned accents. That's great because some people might like some names, for example, like Tomasz Wonder, right?
Maybe, but
Like
as you said,
these
I think
letters.
the two main use cases for this are email addresses and usernames. That's where
Right.
I've seen it. And email addresses are unique no matter the case, but I don't know if they're unique with
No, they are
accents
not.
or not.
They are not. But
Okay.
we might decide, for example, if username in our system is
Yeah.
allowing like variants of Latin characters. We might say, okay, we allow them, but we don't want collisions like
Yeah.
one user used pure Latin, another user used like native version, like
Yeah.
from another language. Many languages have it, right? But we say we allow them, but first person who used it should be protected from collisions. In this case, we might decide to use collations and define unique indexes. That's a great
Yeah.
idea, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. In fact, I know it's not quite related to that, but reading about this, I came across somebody giving an example of lower not always being ideal, or lower and upper like being subtly different, because there's like in some languages you can get an uppercase character that can have two alternative lowercase versions
I
of it.
didn't know about this.
Nor me. But that, I mean, you can imagine the kind of hassle that's going to end up causing. So yeah, it's
Wow.
the collations
Okay.
are where this stuff is defined properly, right? So
Yeah. So
let's
it
rely on
gives
them.
you big freedom. But what are downsides of using collations?
Well, I did wonder because do you remember if glibc changes and we
Yes.
can end up with corrupted indexes?
I don't. How can I like?
Well, of course you remember.
Yes, of course I remember. We had multiple cases with multiple clients. Like
Well,
sometimes with big issues.
could that be an issue here? I
I
think
don't. I
no,
don't.
but
Well, if you use
yeah.
ICU, it should not be so. I don't see how.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think in this case we definitely will want like to specify provider ICU, right?
Yes,
So if
good
it's
point.
yeah, and this comparison is it's I don't see issue here, and also there we have issues not with like comparison but with order, right?
True.
So
Isn't that the same thing?
no, who is bigger, who is who's upper, who is lower, basically in the order. It doesn't. It's not the same as who equals who, right? No.
Except if you're looking for like, is there a clash? Is this unique? You might traverse it only to the point where you're expecting it to be, but it's actually lower down. So you say, oh no, I've already got past that point in the index. You can insert this and you can end up with duplicate values in the unique index. I
It's
think order.
w- yeah. What I don't know is if for so here we use deterministic false, right?
Yes, yes.
And it means that at byte level the characters are different, but we logically we think about them that as equal. But if you think about as equal in the order by, they should go together, right? But do we have deterministic ordering of them always? This is I don't know, like should be, right? But
Yeah.
or this is some deterministic thing. If so, that might cause index corruption. Or yeah, if it's not unique index, if it's unique index, it's just one value. I don't see corruption risks. But if it's non-unique index, and like these values will come in groups, is there like deterministic structure? I mean, not a rule how they are ordered, so we avoid switch of order when glibc version changes. But again, here we talk about ICU, so glibc is not involved, right? So everything should be fine. The only thing, just not to forget, ICU should be enabled at compile time.
Yes.
But which is default, I think, right now. Is it default?
I don't know.
I just remember Cursor and I we were fighting a few weeks ago because my laptop didn't have ICU installed, so I always reminded it. I created even Cursor rule without ICU. If you run configure without ICU, then I surrendered and installed ICUs just because somehow Cursor kept losing this rule somehow. I don't know why. So yeah, it should be present. It might be not present and not be available on the system.
I think, well, lots of people use managed services these days. I think it tends to be on those. But yeah, really good point. But yeah, this seems to me like the way to do it now. And just to complete that, I'm going to read from Adam's blog post. The syntax is create collation, and then you can call it whatever you want. For example, caSe-inSENsiTive. And then you set provider, and he does provider equals ICU, then locale, and then that's the string that you can like set all the various settings we mentioned earlier. And then you choose whether it's, you have to choose in this case, deterministic equals false. So that's the bitewise thing that you're talking about.
Right.
So yeah, in fact, is it worth going through that gobbledygook in the locale quickly? So
yeah,
he's gone with und, so UND or und. I thought it was German at first, but it actually just means undetermined language. So you could set it to like German or French or something if you really wanted to. U specifies Unicode attributes, and then KS level 2. So apparently that's collation strength, and then level 2 doesn't include case in comparisons, only letters and accents. So letters and accents can be considered different, but case can't. So yeah, so that's what you'd want in email address use case, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. Anything else? We have chances to have this episode as I promised, very short. Or there are some additional aspects here. So
no, I think that's it.
So it looks like both of us, if we were building a new system, we probably would try to use this approach with collations. Sounds like
100%.
Most flexible, most powerful these days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I'm checking right now, and I see cases about collation versioning corruption. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. I see Daniel Verite, or how to pronounce.
Yeah.
And
is he PsychoPG?
I'm not sure. I remember this name. I read some blog posts in the past, but definitely collation versioning problem with ICU 73. So it's interesting to think about possible corruption when something changes under the hood. Yeah, and if we go this route, what to expect? I lack personal experience with it, but I would definitely study this topic closer, because I thought if we use ICU collations, well, glibc change is not a problem anymore, so we can upgrade OS, right? But it looks like ICU library can be upgrade can be a problem, so we need to check this, right? We should be very careful considering what happened in the past with glibc changes. I remember it started from not knowing about it at all, then thinking only one change was a problem, and then adjusting vision like, you know what, every glibc version upgrade should be very carefully tested, because it like things change quite often actually there.
Yeah.
So I would bring this experience to here and double check what's happening.
It's probably a case for reindexing at those times, like having maybe a prioritized list of indexes that you want to make sure, like maybe unique indexes at least.
It's
maybe
it's only about unique indexes. If we talk about corruption,
yeah, true.
We like, again, order what matters, and we don't want some values to be returned in different order, or search is not working as expected, and so on. Yeah.
I was thinking about the limitation of only being able to concurrently create or like reindex one at a time. you probably want to prioritize lists. So which ones would you do first? I
Yeah,
was thinking maybe your
in
unique ones first.
yeah, during OS upgrades, we usually look at them and using check to identify indexes which are going to be corrupted, and then we plan to just rebuild them, or like, we rebuild them on if it's this upgrade involves logical replication, we rebuild them before we switch. This is this logical replication gives us flexibility here. So yeah, and
Yes.
but check back in the days could only check B3 indexes.
Yeah.
There was a multi-year work to bring it to gist and gin.
Yeah.
I don't remember. There was some progress there recently, so Postgres 18 probably will bring something, but I don't remember from top of my head. So that's why you probably want to rebuild all gin and gist indexes just for safety, because corruption might happen there as well. Right. So
Nice.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. I learned something from you. Thank you so much. And next time I need this, I probably will look into collations based on ICU and deterministic equals false.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
a good idea. Yeah, and probably we'll think about accents next time. Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind.
For sure. All right. Nice one, Nikolay.
Yeah,
Take care.
thank you. See you next time. Bye bye.